is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and we're continuing with Saturnastra de Deasura. This is chapter 9. Month 8, day 5, year 5. For this entry, I think I will draw a blowfish swimming right next to an anglerfish. And I know both fishes barely meet, but it serves well as a cover for this pathetic little chain of events. And it was close to dusk when I finished my daily rounds by the port, and I know I was supposed to be on vacation and all, but the shipment of weapons had recently been attacked by pirates. And during the transfer, some of the goods had fallen into the ocean, and following the Oculus compound observation, I was able to track down one of those shipments. And about taking it to shore, I was surprised to find a revolver, and I was under the impression that guns were alien to this world. And then again, technological timeline rarely follows a straight line like with the ancient Egyptians and their working planes and electric batteries. And aside from the revolver, there were other war-oriented pieces of metalwork like swords, shields, and armor. And it is a wonder why rely on such weapons when guns were starting to come into the picture. I did read that these little weapons were around as early as the 16th century, and it's not until the Industrial Revolution that they became cheap to make and to own. I decided to give Rudolph the revolver as a present, and since he has insisted on doing the magic thing, he will need a quick weapon to protect himself. And magic is only useful when orchestrating a preemptive strike. And with this in mind, I left him to find him on his own, and he will usually rise up and early to study, and silly considering that there are not a lot of mages to compete with, and humans worry about such silly things like punctuality, like trying to play catch-up race when the winner has long been decided, and since he was not at his study, there was only one other place where he could be. Rudolph had a secret magic teacher, and I put secret in parentheses because a lot of people know what Rudolph is up to. And Rebel always felt this magic thing was a phase that Rudolph would outgrow once he found himself a woman. And the teacher wore the disguise of a handsome courtier gentleman, and to complete the look, he had his small hat with a stock and a floor-length coat with fur linings and with a long hanging sleeve. And the mask he wore was that of green-eyed blonde fellow with a well-trimmed mustache. And the fake name he was using at the time was Gurion of Praga, and his true name was Palamides. And I got this preliminary information from the observer who had recently taken an interest in this masked individual. And his house, his wealth, and all was carefully across the illusion, and I noticed this when I got into an argument with Rudolph the first and only time I came to visit. And Palamides opened a stand in the most peculiar manner, and then he just holding the sides of the door when inside, yet the door opened in a manner akin to doors that had hinges on the outside. And every good Aryan master knows that this is a small detail that would ruin you. And another thing which was different had to do with the furs he wore, and at times the fox furs had the ears slightly smaller than what they should be. And I kept catching him on little things here and there, and he had seen me stalking him enough times for him to be wary of me. And his lips twitched slightly when he saw my head through the window, and I was making faces through the glass in an attempt to pretend to be other human children. And the other day had got me thinking that I was not doing the whole pretending right, and it also did not help that I kept forgetting to change either my hair color or my eyes whenever I would turn in my nightly runs. And it was a good thing that this had become a sort of expected on my temple, and putting my face was always front of the glass, and I noticed that my face were two flaming cauldrons, and Rudolph came outside and said, "Go away, I don't want to deal with you anymore, and you are my father's problem now." I wanted to apologize for spitting into your face, and I promised to be more mindful of your sensitive feelings and to treat you with the love and respect you deserve, I said, with my eyes super glassy. And something about my apology must have seemed sounded mechanical, which made Rudolph grimace, and then he said, "You don't really mean any word you said, and you're just telling me what I want to hear, so you're having another excuse to start teasing me again. Well, I am tired of dealing with you, and I have better things to do with my time, and so good day to you, madam." And Rudolph then returned inside, and I started tapping on the window with my knuckle, and when he looked my way, I said, "I'm so sorry. You are my only friend in the world. Please don't leave me alone." And Rudolph tried his best to ignore me, and I kept saying I'm sorry for minutes on end. And I then started singing the words sorry in different intonations, and after half an hour, Rudolph went outside with his teacher, and gritting his teeth, Rudolph said, "I accept your terrible apology, now go on your way." "You don't really mean that? You're just telling me what I want to hear, so I leave you alone with your studies, and I'm not leaving until you accept my apology," I said, giving a slight smile. I have enough interactions as is. Either get rid of the little imp or I will, said Palamedes, going inside to get a stick or something heavy to hit me with. And Rudolph came towards me and he made a gesture to pull my arm, but he stopped, and closing his hand into a fist, he said, "You already got what you wanted, and I'm sorry for pulling your arm, okay? And just leave me alone and don't bother me again, and I will tell my father when he wants to hear too. Now go!" And I looked at Rudolph over the shoulder and saw his teacher resting his head on his hand, and he was sitting indoors watching the entire event unfold from the window, and yawning, he said, "Just out of curiosity, why do you put up with that little imp?" Sighing and shaking his head, Rudolph answered meekly, "Because I am my father's son." "Ah, boo, you're no fun," I said, tracing a circle on the floor with my shoes. And reaching into my arm, I brought out a wooden box with a blue ribbon. "I got a present for you." "Oh, thank you," said Rudolph, smiling, and he added, "Glad to see someone remember my birthday." "Oh, yeah, of course," I said, shockingly, trying to pretend like I did. He opened the box and his eyes widened, and then he closed it quickly, and looking left and right, he gestured for me to come inside, and Palamedes also seemed alarmed, and Rudolph opened the box and showed him the revolver, and the teacher asked, "Where did you get this?" "Underwater, there was a pirate raid, and I heard some of the cargo had fallen into the water during the escape, so I went to fetch it," I said, folding my arms. "But don't you always give those items back to the port?" inquired Rudolph. "Only if they pay good for money for it, and most of the time they're just happy to get the cargo back. And it's not as if I stiffed them, you know," I said, sitting down in one of the few chairs that was general in the article. "And look here, Deasura, you're a foreigner, and this gun, this weapon, is only carried by judges of Erogerum, and those caught possessing such a weapon are executed or worse, and many nobles have been put to the sword for fancying such a fancy toy," explained Rudolph. "Oh, so you don't like the present," I said, pouting. "This isn't a joke, Deasura. You can get into a lot of troubles. You can get me into a lot of troubles," he said, alarmed. "And wait, what if one of those neighbors saw you when you opened the box?" "Nah, the coast was clear," assured me one of my observers. "I don't think so," I said, and I was about to add more reassuring words when Palamedes interrupted me. "It matters not, as long as we are in possession of such a weapon when in danger of incurring the wrath of the revered prince, or even worse, the king," said Palamedes. "And what do you suppose I do with the weapon? Chuck it back into the ocean? I could do that, you know, and be rid of the problem for good," I suggested, though in fact I was actually planning to keep it for an eventuality. And guessing my friend thought, Palamedes suggested, "I had contact with some well-connected nobles. Through them I can get the gun to its rightful owner. Here," I said, handing him the box, "and if you find out you got rewarded and did not give me any credit, I will." Yes, said Palamedes, rolling his eye, and he went into another room, and he came back with a ruby, and he placed it in my hand and said, "This should just about cover your labor efforts. Now be gone with you. I now have much work to do, and you should go and home and be an art pupil." "Yes, teacher," said Rudolph, giving a proper bow. And he waited by the door till I felt like leaving, and once outside I asked Rudolph, "And want to go to the beach?" "And what for? And more importantly, I have much studies to get done," said Rudolph, starting to walk home. "And you're going to ruin your eyesight if you keep reading by candlelight," I warned. And this was not true. Rather, it just caused eyes to go tired, and it gave migraines from time to time as a result of the strain. "Just what you know," snorted Rudolph. "I know plenty, and come on, it's summer, and you want to take a break from time to time, and it's not as if you're going to get extra points for catching up with your work, and you're not in school, and your tutor seems like the sort of laid-back, paranoid kind of fellow," I said, shaking my fist while standing in Rudolph's path. And I added, walking towards the beach, "Come on, play with me. And if you go to the beach, I will actually give you something good for your birthday. And you can get me a real silly twig, as you like to call them. I would enter the ocean with you," said Rudolph, following along. And since he was trailing behind, I hurried my pace to a light trot, followed by a full-blown jogging, and we were only halfway out of the city when I had to stop and allow Rudolph some time to catch his breath. And he was really disappointing, and folding my arms, I commented, "You know, it would not kill you to exercise a little. And you know, you will not always have a bodyguard keeping the enemy at bay, and you will twirl about your baton and go la-di-da." That makes people suspicious. Speaking plainly, you're not all about for both of our sakes," said Rudolph. "Geez, if walking is such a problem, I'm going to get a horse and just sit there and wait for me to come back," I said, running up before Rudolph could say anything. While he sat down on the stone fence of the entrance of the apartment complex, I was running towards one of the stables, and after paying a rental fee, I was able to take Saturnastra with me, and after riding it for 4 minutes, I found some young noblemen harassing poor Rudolph, and they flinched as soon as they saw me, and they left Rudolph alone and continued on the way as soon as they saw me approach. And what was that all about? I asked Rudolph. Nothing, said Rudolph. If they're hurting you, tell me, and I can kill them for you. I said, dismounting the horse. I mean, it is your birthday after all. Not desiring to argue, Rudolph got on the horse without saying a word, and he held his hands towards me, but then remembering something, he simply reached towards the reins to save face. And I ran ahead while the horse galloped behind, and the streets were winding just before leaving the city and the harbor, and after getting past the Way Castle, we finally reached a pristine, unadulterated beach. Untouched by human artifact, its clear water stood in stark contrast to the murky underbelly of the harbors, and very few of the citizens bothered to visit the beach, which was such a waste, but also a boom. And to the owner of the orphanage, a pious devotee of Hemi was taking the children out to the beach, and Hemi was the goddess of truth and the patron goddess of children, and I saluted the priest and the children as well, and Rudolph said nods and maintaining a respectable distance, and like any noble, he naturally assumed that orphans were a bunch of pickpockets, which was true considering the squalor which they were forced to live in. And the children caught her around us and started asking for money, and I said, shoo, and if you want money, then work for it. And what do you want us to do for you? Said one of the older girls, and she was carrying a half-starved toddler. I want you to search the beach and gather seashells, and for everyone I get, you will earn a copper penny, and you will also get a silver piece every hour once you're in my employment. I hop to it, I said, gesturing with my hands. And when I looked over my shoulder, I was greeted by Rudolph's distraught face, and he asked, and why couldn't you just have given them amounts as all these people do, and by the gods, they're your children, and you're having them to do work for you? This isn't the first time I have put them to work, and they know I'm good for it, and unlike guilt, I actually pay them a living and fair wage. So in a way, I am the bad guy in this story, I asked, folding my arms. Rudolph got off his high horse and then said, I don't know, it still just feels wrong to me. That's because you never had to work for a thing your entire life, and you will never get far in life if you do not work for the things you desire, I said while I started to undress. And I neatly folded him into a bow before entering the warm ocean. And Rudolph seemed a bit embarrassed, but then he took out a dress and he sat down by the shore, and the waves raised a bit and enough to lightly touch his fingertips. And the sun was especially warm that day, and as it slowly roasted my tanned face, and the girl came to stand beside Rudolph, and she asked him, can you hold him a bit? I need to speak with Deasura. Fine, said Rudolph, putting the fidgety shawl on the floor before him. And to tease her, I slowly swam further and further away from her till the water was practically up to her nose. And whenever a wave came, she would take a deep breath and jump on the sand to keep herself afloat. And it was at this point when I swam closer to her and asked, can I help you? I've been having these bleeding episodes every month or so late, and I'm worried that I will bleed to death at this rate, she said, worried. And now in my eyes, I eyed her from head to toe, and I commented, that's normal, but if they are such a bother, I can get rid of them for good, and without none of the usual side effects associated with a cure. I don't care, just heal me, please, and I will be forever in your debt, said the girl. Not as much as you think, and once you're cured, you cannot be uncured, for lack of a better word. And whatever so-called defective body parts I take and replace will belong to me, and forever and ever, and no gives it back, if you understand, I asked once again. I understand, said the girl, not understanding what I was implying. And I cured her so-called malady, and I had explained to her that her birds and beating, and she still wanted to have the problem solved, and since she had seen childbirth once, and it looked rather painful, so she didn't want none of it. And continuing with this turn of events, some of the new orphans were taken to be healed by me, and some of the older ones had gotten injured in some way or another, and kids with parents enjoy beating the little orphans to a pulp, and when they do fight back, they get the rake or even a crueler public humiliation. And the disaster is just the world we live in, and whenever there was something stolen, any nearby orphan was always blamed for it. And ideally, the berserkers promised equality under the law. However, enforcement of such a premise varies from city to city, and you are promised a relatively fair treatment if you live in the inner cities, or in the capital, and upon such matters while I floated blissfully on top of the waves, and once a large one pummeled me back to the shore, and it even managed to help me arrive at standing up. And smiling Rudolph commented, you really are a mermaid, aren't you? And that's what I'm going for. I started taking some of the seaweed off my hair. And why do you always wear the stupid armband? Asked Rudolph. 'cause that's where I keep my bag of tricks," I added. "See, if it can be pulled off either, not without cutting my arm off." I will keep that in mind," said Rhoda flatly. "Don't be getting any funny ideas in your head, and I promise you a sweetie twig, and I'm going to get you one to bite tonight. And on a side note, what things would you like it to do?" I asked, sitting down beside him. "Like a silly twig is what Deasura calls like a magic staff." "I always thought that they were a necessary tool for going on hikes," said Rudolph. "And you could always go to the forest without one, though by God help you if you walk ahead first into a swamp," I added. "And they're useful in so much as they can help you test the solidity of the path before you." "I never thought of it that way," said Rudolph thoughtfully, and he was quiet for some time, and then he said, "I want one that will help me meet new people, and that it will be useful in a way of locating in the forest and burning buildings in a tornado or the ocean." And I thought in my list, realizing this little cold talk was getting out of hand, and everyone in the neighborhood knows that what you are, dear Rudolph. Alas, I will play your game, but only because it's your birthday. And after an hour of a prolonged basic conversation, I got bored and went back into the ocean, and the tide had risen somewhat, and I gestured to Rudolph, but he insisted on staying in the sand on the shore. And from time to time, a large wave would surprise him, and he would get hit by his torso wet. And overall, he spent his time digging a hole with a little toddler orphan. And the air felt heavy and wet, and the waves were unusually large from the ones I had seen so far. And I saw in the sky a maiden dressed in white with a golden spiral ornamental dress, Greek dress. And her long braided hair was like raven black, and her see-through veil was even longer than her wet hair, and she had round emerald sapphire ornament on her forehead attached to her cycle. And standing up, I scanned the sky to see for another, and a couple of kilometers away from her there was another maiden. And according to Liz, those maidens were the daughters of Verua, and they appear ahead of a storm to help humans prepare, and depending on the color of the dress was the severity of the storm, and with white being the visual cue to make peace with one higher powers. And as an warning system, these girls gave you about 2 to 3 days to get prepared for the storm. And I said girls because I did not sense anything divine about them. And Rudolph saw the maidens started getting dressed, and I got out too, and the children gave me seizures, and I quickly paid them, and I said to them, "Tonight I will go make arrangements for a safe place for you to stay, and I will have you relocated tomorrow morning, and for now go home and stock up on supplies." I left with Rudolph on horseback, and when we arrived at the temple, everyone was scrambling to secure their personal belongings. And outside the temple, the army was marching up and down the streets with trumpets flaming in all 4 corners. And I sat down by the pool and watched the clear blue sky above, and the wind was slowly growing stronger, and it was about 15 miles per hour, and Liz was running past us. And when he stopped, he said, "There you are, and I have been looking all over for you too, and where were you?" "And we went to the beach to celebrate Rudolph's birthday," I said casually. "Dad, we saw the Nephilis as they were just arriving," explained Rudolph along. "So that means that the storm is going to touch down in the outer dock," said Leaf, worried. "Nah, just because the storm is coming our way does not mean that we're going to get hit, you know. Hurricanes are an unpredictable nature. For all we know, it will just graze us," I said in a cheerful tone. "You're right, Deasura, but we will keep an eye on the Nephilis, and if they fly below our city, then the worst is to come. However, if they do not enter, then we might not get hit directly by the storm," said Robert, coming towards us. "And we should still prepare just in case," said Leaf, worried. "Yeah, you do that, and I will go back to the beach to keep an eye out for them," I said, running towards the stables and getting on the horse. Until thus I watched the lazy dance of the 2 Nephilis, and from time to time they would enter somewhat into the city only to move backwards towards the beach, and to understand their bizarre movements. I connected with Uncle Sheen and his eyes, who were in charge of monitoring the weather in Saturnastra, and indeed there was a hurricane coming our way, and it was in the process of doing one of those bizarre U-turns, and based on the preliminary observation, it was going to strike the archipelago coast a few miles away from Mita. And since they were on the bottom band, and we might get struck by heavy rain and surf, but nothing else too seriously. Keeping this in mind, I'm not too worried about the coming storm, though one never knows. I returned to the city, and when the sun fell, and it was a pity since the waves were starting to reach impressive proportions, and I made a mental note to go out surfing, and when I returned to the temple, I found his house more or less deserted, and it took me a bit to find out where everyone was located, and the priest and priestess attendants guards were in the inner sanctum, and Liz was in the midst of praying for a miracle. Alright, let's leave it here. There's a storm coming. Bye bye and God bless.